The Steam Winter Sale is here, which means great deals on indie games, so here are my recommendations, with prices decreasing as the video goes along. So let's begin with Trepang Square, a brutal single-player FPS built around aggressive movement, slow-motion gunfights, and close-quarters combat, where every encounter rewards speed, positioning, and violence pushed to the limit. Fight through tight industrial environments using shotguns, rifles, grenades, and melee takedowns, while chaining slides, kicks, and cloaking abilities to overwhelm enemies before they can react. Encounters escalate with enemy heavies and bosses that force you to move rather than cowering behind cover, with the combat arenas designed to let you control space through flanking routes and vertical movement. Upgrades expand weapon handling and tactical options, letting firefights evolve into chaotic power fantasies, where hesitation gets punished instantly, with 66% off being a pretty sweet deal for shooter fans. Ship of Fools is a co-op action roguelite focused on frantic teamwork aboard a constantly besieged ship, sailing through dangerous waters. Man the cannons, reload weapons, repair damage, and repel boarding enemies, while storms and sea creatures pressure every system at once. Each run throws new hazards and enemies at you, forcing communication and role splitting as the ship itself becomes the battlefield. Unlockable trinkets, weapons, and different crew pairings change how you approach defense and damage output, slowly letting you get a handle on the mayhem as you learn the game. There have been a number of free updates post-launch, so at 65% off and under $8, this is an easy co-op recommendation. This video is brought to you by Berserk B.I.T.S, an auto-battler idle RPG that sure has Mega Man Battle Network vibes, recently releasing in November 2025, so here's what's next.
Our game Berserk B.I.T.S has been out for not even a month, and we're already having our first event, the Bubble Event. With an all-new biome, with new enemies, and a big bubble boss to take on, all on your desktop. As well as 6 new battle chips and a bunch of bubble-themed decorations. And to celebrate the new event, we're also hosting a competition where we'll select a few players to collaborate with to create custom battle chips that will go in the game forever. All you have to do is send in some screenshots of you beating the bubble boss and the victory email you get in-game to our Discord for a chance to win.
Yes, you heard it right. The developers are making good on their promise for active post-launch support, launching their first event with 3 more in the works. In this game, you play as a net detective, guiding your battle intelligent teammate, or BIT, through a digital world, battling viruses and collecting rare battle chips to build a powerful deck of upgrades and abilities. Train and level up your BIT and uncover the mystery of who or what is behind the attacks on the net, being different from other bottom-of-screen idle games since this has a narrative and story. There's also a home base to upgrade and personalize, and you can even import your own sprite if you so choose, all for the low price of less than $7, so buy it on Steam today if interested. Nobody Saves the World comes to us from Drinkbox Studios, makers of the Guacamelee games, and is an action-adventure RPG designed around constant form switching and ability remixing as you push through dungeons and overworld challenges. Play as the blank slate character Nobody, who gains the ability to transform between wildly different forms, each with their own moveset, then mix abilities across them to solve puzzles, clear enemies, and complete quests that demand experimentation. Combat stays fast and playful as you puzzle out the ideal combination to take them on, and constantly unlock new forms that expand your options, so at 70% off is an easy recommendation as well. HROT is a retro-inspired first-person shooter with an oppressive atmosphere, tight level design, and methodical combat where positioning and ammo discipline matter more than raw reflexes. Explore bleak industrial zones and crumbling facilities inspired by late Cold War Eastern Europe, clearing rooms with a limited arsenal that rewards careful aim and planning rather than spraying and praying. Enemies hit hard and come from unusual angles, forcing slower advances, corner checks, and smart use of cover as levels unfold like hostile mazes packed with secrets and optional detours. Weapons feel chunky and deliberate, with each upgrade expanding combat options without ever removing the tension, and is pretty much boomer shooter perfection at 66% discount. Kynseed did undergo quite the drastic transformation through early access and released in 1.0 a little while back, so if you have been waiting or forgot, 75% off is a great price to give this sprawling life sim RPG a try. The gimmick here is that time, legacy, and consequences shape everything you do, which ripples across generations, since you can eventually step into the shoes of your children and continue the game playing as them. Farm, fish, fight, cook, craft, and run shops in a living fantasy world that ages alongside your character, with NPCs remembering actions and reacting to choices made years ago. Combat and exploration takes you into dangerous worlds and dungeons, while town life evolves around building relationships, managing businesses, and passing skills and property down to the next generation, with an awesome pixel art look where the developers on this previously worked on Fable and Black and White and have perhaps over-delivered on their initial promise. Phoenotopia Awakening is a massive, side-scrolling action-adventure platformer with Metroidvania elements where the adults in the village have disappeared, and as the new, oldest member of the village, it is now your responsibility to find out what happened. The game has exploration, platforming combat, and puzzles as you travel across villages, ruins, and wilderness zones while managing limited resources and carefully choosing when to fight or disengage, as combat favors timing, positioning, and preparation. Dungeons are dense with environmental puzzles, hidden upgrades, and optional challenges that reward curiosity and patience. Progression comes through equipment, tools, and health upgrades, as well as supporting systems like cooking and fishing being super underrated and at 70% off and under $6, this is another easy recommendation. Laika Age Through Blood is a brutal motorbike-driven Metroidvania where grief, revenge, and survival fuel every decision you make. You play as Laika, a mother and warrior, navigating a violent wasteland shaped by war and loss, driven forward by a deeply personal need for vengeance and closure. Movement and combat are inseparable, chaining flips, momentum, and recoil-based shooting while managing fuel and health in constant motion. Every fight becomes a balancing act between speed and precision, with mistakes carrying heavy consequences. Exploration reveals ruined settlements, hostile factions, and fragments of Laika's past, slowly unfolding a bleak narrative about sacrifice and endurance. New abilities expand traversal and combat options, deepening the mechanical complexity alongside the emotional weight of the journey, and is wholly unique with nothing else like this in the market, so pick it up at 70% discount. Forgive Me Father is a Lovecraftian first-person shooter set in a nightmare where madness is not just a theme but a mechanic tied directly to survival, and is pretty good, even more so at 75% off. You play as a priest armed with faith and firearms, pushing deeper into cursed towns and decaying ruins to uncover the truth behind an otherworldly corruption that has twisted people and places beyond recognition. Combat is fast and aggressive as you circle strafe, take headshots, and manage an insanity meter that actively alters how enemies behave and how powerful you become. Weapons evolve through upgrades that change fire patterns and effects, and thus include eldritch weapons, which are always a fun alternative to conventional firearms, having an absolutely sick art style as well. F.I.S.T, forged in Shadow Torch, is a Metroidvania where you play as a former soldier pulled back into conflict to rescue a friend from an oppressive, mechanized regime. Explore a diesel punk city filled with secret paths, shortcuts, and combat arenas that reward mastery of positioning and timing. The titular F.I.S.T is a third mechanical arm which you wear on your back, which can transform between fist, drill, and whip mode, each changing how you approach enemies and bosses. Upgrades expand mobility and combo options, and is a good one of these. It did have a high base price, but that has since been cut to a fifth of the original, and is somehow 70% off on top of that, so I'm not sure if they made a pricing error or something, but I would definitely get this if you're interested in Metroidvanias. APICO takes a gentler approach, casting you as a conservationist, rebuilding endangered ecosystems through careful beekeeping and resource management. Explore forests, swamps, and coastlines while breeding bees, restoring habitats, and cataloging species lost to environmental collapse. Systems revolve around cross-breeding traits, crafting tools, and managing sustainable production loops that slowly heal the world rather than exploit it. Progress feels deliberate and thoughtful, where I just talked about their new game, Mudborn Frog Management Sim, in yesterday's video, but if you prefer bees, 80% discount is very good. The Escapists 2 is the follow-up to a game from 2015, and similarly is a prison escape RPG where you play as a prisoner obsessed with only one thing: getting out, study routines, gather contraband, craft tools, and manipulate guards while maintaining the illusion of good behavior across multiple prisons with wildly different layouts and rules. Every escape is a layered puzzle where timing, preparation, and social engineering matter just as much as the tools themselves. Multiplayer adds coordination and unpredictability, letting plans unravel or succeed spectacularly depending on your execution, with 80% off making this an easy recommendation as well. The Banner Saga 3 is the climactic final chapter in the award-winning tactical RPG trilogy, where every choice you made in the earlier games echoes across battlefields and broken roads as the world teeters on the brink of annihilation. Picking up where the previous game left off, the story follows duo groups struggling to hold back an encroaching darkness that threatens to swallow everything it comes into contact with, make impossible decisions about who lives, who dies, and what sacrifices are worth paying to delay the inevitable, where all three games are individually 85% off, but if interested, you should definitely start with one. Urbek City Builder has you playing as the visionary city planner of your own voxel metropolis, where resource management, neighborhood planning, and thoughtful layout decisions define the life of your citizens from infancy to full industrious adulthood. There's no money here, instead every building from farms and housing to power plants must be filled with resources like food, coal, and skilled labor. And because buildings upgrade into better structures when placed correctly and surrounded by the relevant services, every placement feels like part of a puzzle. Carefully balance energy, workforce, and environmental impact, which turns city planning into a satisfying resource equation where optimizing various zones and anticipating needs matter more than endless expansion. As your city morphs and grows, challenges like pollution, infrastructure limits, and connectivity forces you to think ahead and shape your world with intention, and is currently at 81% off, so give it a go if you love this genre. Topple Tactics is a physics-based asymmetric multiplayer tower defense game where one massive toppler player sets traps, builds turrets, and unleashes abilities to make the path as hazardous as possible, then the other smaller players attempt to make their way through in order to topple the giant's defenses. The multiplayer structure turns every match into a dramatic tug of war as the big player's arsenal of towers and abilities forces the little runners to adapt their strategy and master timing and coordination in real time, while the runner players use upgrades, stats, and equipment to outpace the increasing hazards and beat the clock. This dynamic creates an emergent narrative every session where cunning planning and split-second reactions decide whether the giant crushes all hope or the underdogs break through with a last-second dash, being fun with friends and is worth a try at 65% off. A sick-looking game is Othercide, a roguelike tactics title which puts you at the helm of humanity's last hope, commanding an army of daughters who themselves are echoes of the greatest warrior to ever live against the nightmarish forces of suffering that are warping the world. Each daughter is unique, her strengths and weaknesses shaped by how you evolve and sacrifice within your roster, who then have to work together in tactical combat to counter foes before they overwhelm you. Combat isn't about brute force, but about planning ahead, since lining up elaborate sequences can stun, counter, reposition, or outright break enemy turns with surgical precision, having their self-described dynamic timeline system that rewards foresight and is at a massive 90% discount. A very weird third-person action RPG is Clash Artifacts of Chaos, where martial arts, strange magic, and surreal world-building collide as you escort a mysterious child through bizarre lands threatened by dark forces and mercenaries that stalk your every move. You play as Pseudo, a seasoned fighter whose mastery of unarmed combat and multiple stances lets you weave dodges, counters, and devastating combos together in fast-paced battles against grotesque enemies that shift between dreamlike and nightmarish forms, and the day-night cycles dynamically alter how enemies behave and how you explore the world. Between fights, participate in rituals, gather resources, and upgrade abilities that deepen combat nuance, being the spiritual successor to the Xenoclash series, which are equally strange but interesting games, so 90% discounts might just push you over the edge to try it. If you never understood the hype behind first-person medieval games, then perhaps MORDHAU at 90% off might make you want to give this a try. A multiplayer medieval melee combat sim where timing, stamina management, and strategic strikes determine whether you survive brutal clashes or fall beneath a rain of steel. It isn't a flashy fantasy representation of medieval combat, but a grounded, visceral one instead, as you participate in one-on-one duels, skirmishes, and large-scale sieges. Use a variety of equipment from swords, axes, spears, and shields, which all feel weighty and consequential, and every successful parry or feint is its own small victory. In massive multiplayer matches, you'll coordinate with allies to storm fortifications or hold the line, having to be aware of what is going on the larger battlefield, but do note that it is multiplayer only and its player population isn't what it used to be, so I would check forums or buy this and test if the matchmaking is suitable for your time zone and what time you usually play games, and in the worst case scenario, refund the game within the refund window. Roadwarden is an illustrated, text-heavy RPG adventure where you play as a lone Roadwarden in a grim, handcrafted fantasy realm where roads connect perilous settlements with dangers like bandits and monsters in the world. There's no flashy action here, since the entire game is conveyed through text, but does have some great pixel art visuals as you make tough, branching dialogue choices and interact with its RPG systems. Your job is to keep travelers safe and can also carry messages, clear threats, and decide who lives and who falls when the law weakens and danger looms. Every choice carries weight, affecting alliances and reputation, where it isn't all that expensive to begin with, but the additional 75% discount brings it to under $3, which makes this worth a try. Moving Out is a physics-driven co-op action puzzle game where you play as movers tackling absurd moving jobs that feel more like chaotic obstacle courses than simple deliveries, because every piece of furniture has personality, weight, and unpredictability. You have to wrestle these items and furniture out of houses with tight hallways, breakable floors, and other environmental hazards on your way back to your truck, turning every level into a frantic juggling act of grip, timing, and teamwork, since heavier objects require more than one player to carry. That said, I would recommend that you only play this with friends, since single player is kind of missing the point, and it's a nice alternative to Overcooked to get if you don't own it at 90% off. Slay the Spire is the genre-defining roguelite deck builder in which you're climbing up a looming spire filled with enemies, bosses, and branching paths that demand tactical card choices, synergy building, and calculated risk, basically causing the energy-based deck builder to explode in popularity, which resulted in many other games down the line. You begin with a modest deck, selecting one of several distinct characters, each of which play completely differently, and gradually acquire new cards, relics, and potions that reshape how your run unfolds. Combat is turn-based and deeply strategic, since enemy intent is made known to you and you can counter accordingly, with this being one of Steam's featured deep discounts at 90% off and is the best reviewed title in this list. Pogo Stuck Rage with your friends is a rage game. Think Jump King, but even worse since you're constantly hopping on a pogo stick and must master the physics to climb up. Traverse surreal obstacle-packed terrain similar to Getting Over It, where balance, tilt control, and momentum are everything. The motivation here is pure, simply to conquer the climb in front of you, while of course laughing, yelling, and falling all the way down with friends and strangers alike. Levels twist into branching paths and optional hazards that demand mastery of the physics and timing. So while rage games tend to be streamer bait and venture into meme game territory, this game does have some pretty interesting pogo platforming and is unique, coming in at around $2, which is a great price. Now we're getting to the good stuff with games under $2, with one of my all-time favorite games here in Yoku's Island Express, a self-styled pinball-vania, in which you play as the newly appointed Dung Beetle Postmaster on a tropical island where something spooked your predecessor and the local deity is suffering from a creeping curse. There's no traditional jumping and you roll all over the place, but the pinball tables are beautifully integrated into the level design itself, having bumpers, developers and launch pads so you can roll Yoku and his ball through lush biomes, unlock new areas, quirky islanders, and restore harmony to the island's fractured spirits. It's very charming and clever in design, not lasting too long as compared to other Metroidvanias, but it was enjoyable the whole way through, where personally I'm still waiting for a sequel that might never come, but in the meantime $1.99 is too good a deal to pass up. Developer Yak & Co has some interesting games such as Agent A, but we're looking at Down in Bermuda here, a puzzle-adventure game with exploration and mystery at its heart, telling the story of an adventurous aviator stranded within a strange time bubble deep inside the infamous Bermuda Triangle who must solve environmental puzzles to find his way home. Explore 6 unique islands, cracking cryptic codes, uncovering magic orbs, and interacting with whimsical mechanisms to unlock the path forward, which requires clever thinking and careful exploration, but is not one of those hardcore puzzle games and is relatively breezy, so at $1.59 do give this a try. Sheltered is a post-apocalyptic survival strategy game where you have to protect your characters after a global nuclear holocaust, transforming every decision into a matter of life, death, and emotional weight as you struggle to make it through another day in a world that no longer offers second chances. You start with 4 family members and a makeshift underground shelter that must be maintained, creating space for beds, toilets, and water filtration while keeping hunger, radiation exposure, fatigue, stress, and infections at bay through careful resource management, crafting, and planning whether to scavenge or fortify. Sending characters out is always a gamble, but scarce supplies means that every expedition could be a breakthrough or a tragedy. And whether you fight other survivors, barter for food, or run away matters just as much as your shelter upgrades and survival instincts, and it's just $1.49 for an excellent title. We ended with where it all began with the roguelite platformer Rogue Legacy 1, which was the game that got me into indie games all those many years ago, so I owe a huge debt to developer Celador Games. The genealogical roguelite has you playing as successive generations of heroes, each with their own unique quirks and traits, as you attempt to conquer an ever-shifting castle and the boss at the heart of it. Where 12 years ago, as a broke university student, an endlessly replayable game sure had its appeal, now even more so at $1.49, so please get this if you don't own it. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.